Coming up tonight, we're investigating whether Keir Starmer is putting too much pressure on police and if his body language suggests he's been dishonest over Beargate. But first, let's clash on this issue. And for me, the most important question is, do you believe that the Labour leader is telling the truth over his beer and curry antics in Durham? Let me know your thoughts by emailing dan@gbnews.uk, tweet me at gbnews, and while you're there, go and vote in our poll. I'll bring you those results shortly. But joining me to debate this and help you make up your mind is broadcaster and author Nina Mishkov, media personality and writer Christine Hamilton, and the political commentator and former advisor to David Cameron, Alex Dean. Great to have you all here. So, Nina Mishkov, you believe him?
I do. I think most people would judge him as reasonably as an honourable man. He has integrity. He is shown to have integrity, and I think he's telling the truth. It's ridiculous to try and compare Beergate, as it's now known, to Partygate. And while I'm saying these things, you must know that actually I didn't vote Labour in the council elections. I haven't voted Labour since the Iraq War. So I'm not blindly following some party, just to let you know. This is a kind of reasonable, honest assessment on my part. And
But do you believe that Rishi Sunak broke the rules for being in a room where someone came in and presented a birthday cake to the Prime Minister?
I am not a member of the police, and I'm not a lawyer. And if they say that he broke the rules, then he broke the rules. And do you know that if Keir Starmer has been found to break the rules, if it's thought that he's broken the rules, then of course he will resign because he's an honourable man, and so will Angela Rayner. That's the nature of the people that they are. And so, therefore, this cannot be equated to Partygate. Partygate, we're talking about 16 parties, only one of which has been addressed by the police so far, that's been made public. And this is just ridiculous to equate one evening when it was scheduled into his working schedule to have a curry and a beer with the people he'd been working with and his team. You cannot equate that to...
Christine Hamilton, I can't believe that anyone could actually have read the lockdown rules that were in place at the time and think that Keir Starmer didn't break the rules. I mean, we can see it with our own eyes. He was boozing, Christine.
Yes, I mean, lots of people broke the rules. The fundamental problem is that apart from the rules being absolutely ludicrous and ridiculous, they were incredibly vague and they were open to massive different interpretations. And that is proved now because you've got senior top lawyers both arguing on opposite sides. Some say that because it was a pre-arranged work event and because the curry was organised in advance, that means it wasn't a breach of the rules. Equally, other lawyers are saying because of all that, it was a breach of the rules. So the point is that nobody really knows whether he's breached the rules or not because they're an absolute lawyer's paradise, and a lot of people will make a lot of money out of this because it's impossible to know. But Nina talked about the comparison with I can't remember what we call it now, Ghettogate. Boris lives and works at number 10, so there is a fundamental difference between him, for example, going into his garden where he works, where he lives, it's his garden, where he's been working with people all day, and Keir Starmer, who doesn't live at the Miners' Hall in Durham, he clearly, to me, broke the rules, and he has now fallen hideously heavily off his high horse. I mean, you mentioned Rishi Sunak. He banged on and on about poor Rishi Sunak, who I am no supporter of particularly. He innocently walked into a meeting 8 minutes early, was thrust with a piece of cake in his hand, and he gets fined. There is absolutely no comparison. And I wonder, and I feel that Keir Starmer kind of knows he's not going to be fined. They didn't investigate and fine Dominic Cumming because they said they were not going to do retrospective investigations. Yeah. They are now doing.
Exactly. And even if they say he broke the rules, but they don't give him a fine, he hasn't pledged to resign. Alex Dean, do you believe Keir Starmer?
Dan, I don't think they can do that. Surely, if he has broken the rules, they must fine him. That is my interpretation.
Well, they didn't with Dominic Cummings. They didn't with Dominic Cummings. Alex Dean, do you believe Keir Starmer?
I'm prepared to believe that he's convinced himself he hadn't broken the rules, but I'm equally clear that he did break the rules. And because the guidance that was made available for people who were campaigning in the elections at the time was admirably specific. It said that if you if you needed to meet, unless the people concerned were in your social bubble, which nobody's claiming that these 20 were in a peculiar social bubble together, unless they were in your social bubble, then up to 2 campaigners could meet indoors for as brief as it took to exchange materials, hand over clipboards, give campaign literature to one another, and that was it. And plainly, he didn't keep to those rules. And the second thing that I point out about Keir Starmer is, of course, that he said that the Prime Minister should resign because he'd been investigated, not because he'd been given a fixed penalty notice. Before that even happened, Keir Starmer maintained that it brought the office into such disrepute to be investigated by the police that he ought to resign. Well, Keir Starmer's now being investigated by the police, and what's sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander.
The reason, Alex, that Keir Starmer tweeted that Boris Johnson should resign at that point, because he had already lied to Parliament in saying that there had been no parties at all, and that's why.
Well, Keir Starmer has lied time and time again about Beargate, Nina Mishkov.
No, he has not.
He claimed Angela Rayner wasn't there. She was. He said that all of the takeaway places in Durham were closed. They were not. They were open. He said he couldn't be served food at his hotel. He has lied time and again about this.
The hotel stopped serving. Well, this is a silly point. The hotel stopped serving food at 9 o'clock. In his schedule, and Christine will know this, a politician has a schedule. They have lunch. They have meeting with this, meeting, lunch, dinner, whatever. It's all written down there.
Nina, have you read the Politico report on this? There were 30 people drunk. It's not stopping for a meal. It was a party. And the fact that people on the left like you cannot see the difference between this and your hypocrisy over Boris Johnson shows you have lost the plot.
You cannot feed and drink 30 people, it was supposed to be, on £200. I'd like to know if you can come and be my catering director, if you can feed 200 people on 30.
Do you usually down beer while working, Nina, at 10:04 p.m. on a Friday night?
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. People do. People do that. And I'm sure you have too. But the thing is, at that time, if you were working, you were allowed to stop for a meal break and continue working.
You weren't.
You weren't.
Look at the rules.
I've read the rules. I have read the rules. I've read the rules today. In a working situation, you were allowed to break, to have a meal, and to continue working.
Alex Dean, please help me here, because I've read the rules time and again. It said all socialising was completely bad.
That was not socialising. It was working.
Nina,
it was working. If you look, a mass working colleagues.
Where do you draw the line between working and socialising? This is what the police are going to have to do, and it's not their job to do that sort of thing.
It's not their job to do this, but they're so busy taken up with 16 Tory parties, 16 Downing Street parties, and it's not their place to do that either.
Well, Alex, let me ask you, this is where the hypocrisy of the left infuriates me. Because, by the way, I'm not saying anyone should have to resign as a result of breaking COVID rules. The rules were an ass, and what this whole scenario proves to me is that these lockdown regulations should never have been in place. But let's just put that to one side. Starmer says Rishi Sunak should resign for simply being presented with a birthday cake, or being in the room when Boris was presented with a birthday cake. Yet he says he should keep his job despite breaking the campaigning regulations and downing beer surrounded by drunk staff members on a Friday night. The fact that the left cannot see that hypocrisy beggars belief.
It is not hypocrisy.
Just let Alex come in, Nina.
All right, OK.
Respond.
Plainly, it is hypocrisy, and I think the only people that can't see it are those who are desperate not to see it. As I was saying, it was plain in the rules that you could meet up to 2 people for campaigning purposes at the time. So even if Nina is right and it was only 20, not 30, that's still 18 more than you were supposed to have. But furthermore, there's no suggestion or evidence they actually went on working afterwards. What were they doing? Knocking on doors, turning out material? They said they did a video. Should be very easy to produce that video if it was made. In fact, it seems like this was a classic end of day. Well done, everyone. Here's a few drinks. Completely understandable, totally human nature, and completely against the rules.
You were allowed, Alex, at that point.
Christine, I'll let Christine come in and then I'll let you respond to both, Nina.
Alex, I mean, it's absolutely right. It was totally understandable, just like the parties that Boris did were totally understandable. The whole thing is it's a foolish farce in a beer mug, and if it wasn't so funny, I would cry. I mean, the country deserves better than this absolutely pointless pantomime. But who brought it on? Keir Starmer, and he's now taking his own medicine.
Yeah, I mean, Nina, he made himself out as a paragon
desperate.
of virtue when it came to COVID restrictions.
And he has actually stuck to the rules. And in this case, the police will judge whether he has broken the rules or not. Christine, I listened while you were talking, so let me just finish. And I'd just like to say to Alex and to you, Dan, that he called for Rishi to resign, not because he'd been standing there with a piece of cake, because he thought he should be resigning because of a piece of cake, but because the police had fined him. Because the police had fined him. Now, if the police hadn't fined him, he wouldn't have said a word. Why would he?
Well, Nina, I actually think you have willful blindness.
I don't.
Because I
don't have willful blindness.
You were saying that Keir Starmer was working as he stood up, bear in hand, tie off, 10:04 p.m., surrounded by drunk staff members on a Friday night. To me, that shows willful blindness from you, Nina.
You don't know they were drunk. You do not know they were drunk.
Do you not believe the Politico report? Do you not believe the Politico report? Are they not a credible news
I would like to know what I will like to know what the police report says. And standing up doesn't make you break the rules. And having a beer bottle in your hand does not make you break the rules. It is just this is hysterical nonsense. This is the only thing. The right wing is so hysterically desperate to find something to detract attention from the miserable performance of the Conservative Party in the council elections. This is the only thing they could dig up. It's quite hysterical.
Consistency.
All
I want, Alex Dean, is consistency.
You will get consistency, and if he's proved to have been wrong, he will resign, and Angela Rayner will resign. And will Boris Johnson resign if he is fined indubitably, as he will be for other parties? No, he will not. And there is the difference in the measure of the man. And I tell you, what your views about Keir Starmer are complete variance to what the average person in the street thinks. A YouGov poll will show that people, vast percentages of people, think of him as an honourable man.
Let's see. I have a feeling that's changing.
Christine, I want to say quickly that one of the worst aspects of all this, I think, is that Keir Starmer has tried to politicise the police. He should have just said, let the law take its course. He should never
not
Good point. And we're going
to
discuss that later in the show. Fascinating debate. That was the media personality Christine Hamilton, the broadcaster and author Nina Mishkov, and the writer, political commentator and former advisor to David Cameron, Alex Dean.